Welcome to the Did Nothing Wrong podcast, where we try to cut through the noise and help you make sense of the chaotic information space around us. I'm Griff Somke.
And I'm Jay McKenzie.
Today on the Did Nothing Wrong podcast, we are joined once again by journalist Amanda Moore, who is back from CPAC with a full report on what the diehard MAGA fan base is up to, as well as a check-in with Nick Fuentes and his Groypers, who were hanging around looking for attention as well. We'll also discuss her experiences at the recent Rage Against the War Machine rally and get an update from there on the state of the Red-Brown Alliance. If you like what you're hearing, please give us a rating and a review on the app that you're listening on. Be sure to subscribe at didnothingwrongpod.com to get our content straight into your inbox. All of our work is free, but we're extremely grateful for paid subscriptions and donations that ensure that we can keep doing this important work. Thank you. Amanda, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you back on. You've been busy lately. How was CPAC?
Oh, great. You know, it's a lot of fun to be up close and personal with all the people who are mean to you on Twitter. Mm-hmm. You know, I like that. Mm-hmm. I love that for me.
Heard you made some new friends out there.
Yeah, I did. I made several new friends. Most of them kind of look the same haircut, same facial structures. I don't really know who's who, but, you know. They all know me.
They dress very sharp. I saw for that from the pictures. They got kind of a 1930s, was it cabaret, Berlin sort of aspect going. They're the wrong side of that movie, as it were. But yeah, that seemed like they were very, very interested in you and what you were doing out there and your life. And can you tell us a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah. So I was trying to ask one of these guys, who is a neo-Nazi, to confirm something for my story about being undercover, because we know the same people. And I knew he was not going to confirm or give comment. And he did not enjoy being asked for that.
No.
So his name is Grayson Arnold.
Yeah, so Grayson Arnold, there's a Daily Beast article from October of last year by Zachary Patrizzo, who calls Grayson Arnold a pro-Nazi blogger who was paid in July of 2022 by the Washington State GOP. He at least received one payment of $821 for, quote, payroll, but they reportedly fired him after they found out about his beliefs. There's some question about that, but in any case, he was paid once. Grayson Arnold runs a far-right Telegram account, this is according to Patrizzo, called Pure Politics, which traffics in January 6th conspiracy theories, praise of controversial lawmakers, and anti-COVID containment sentiments. According to CNN, Arnold has advocated shooting refugees, killing undocumented immigrants, and has posted praise for Nazi Germany. He actually once said Adolf Hitler was, quote, a complicated historical figure which many people misunderstand, end quote.
Wow, that's a bit of a shocking statement there. That's definitely something.
Pro-Nazi blogger seems to fit with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if that's what you're going to say about Hitler, I think that's definitely pro-Nazi blogger is a hat you can wear.
Oh,
that's
weird.
That's a fair one.
Weird. He does not like Amanda Moore. So more points than the Amanda Moore column.
And back in September, CNN wrote about him because he did an interview with Joe Kent.
Okay.
But it was like, you know, like man on the street thing. Like he just walked up to Joe Kent. Like I'm no defender of Joe Kent, but I don't think that the Kent campaign necessarily organized it. And I've talked to the Kent campaign about this, and I'm inclined to believe them when they say they did not. But like, so CNN is like, this guy's a neo-Nazi, you know, he was really into Hitler Youth, which all this stuff. And so, you know, I knew about him, but I didn't know about his friends, really. Some of his friends I still don't know anything about. So I asked him for comment, and he, you know, followed me, and they encircled me and started asking me about my father and my relationship with my father and calling me a slut. They did not answer any of my questions. If you were wondering, by the way, I did not get.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
So now my story will have to say, when asked for comment, Grayson Arnold and his friends surrounded me and called me a whore while suggesting my father beat me. So
they seem nice. They seem nice.
Super nice. Yeah, one of his friends is Ryan Sanchez.
I've heard of him.
Legal teams.
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
He was in Rise Above movement.
Yeah.
Yep, confirmed member of the Rise Above movement, neo-Nazi street gang based in Southern California. Several members sentenced on riot charges in 2019 related to Charlottesville.
So this is Daily Kos in November of 2022. The title is OANN features neo-Nazi gang member on air to defend January 6th Capitol insurrection. And there's Mr. Sanchez, director of the Nationalist Network.
Joining us now to discuss is Ryan Sanchez, the director of the Nationalist Network and friend of Christian Secor. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Ryan.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Is there any way we can help Christian leading up to his sentence?
Well, I ask that you keep him in your prayers, and I ask that you contact your local representatives and candidates and demand that they speak up for men like Christian and all the other defendants of January 6th.
Thank you so much, Ryan. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
He was too toxic for the trucker convoy.
Right. Wow. He's got some friends in low places, as it were. That's impressive.
He claims to be good friends with Robert Rundo. Okay.
Yes, Robert Rundo, who is apparently currently hiding out in Serbia, trying not to get himself extradited back to the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Serbia or Russia, or sometimes what's the difference there? They are bros.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the focus on your dad potentially beating you? Or are they just trying to throw every insult at you that they possibly can?
So they're like, oh, well, you went in the MAGA movement and you fucked all these guys, which is always funny because I'm also like the ugliest woman alive who will never have sex with anybody, they say. But also the people I went undercover with are their friends. So it's like, your friends' standards are low, or like what's happening? I don't understand.
Some kind of weird contradiction here that really probably makes sense if you listen to enough Nick Fuentes live streams. Eventually it'll just click for you.
Well, no, because I do, and I listen to a lot of Nick Fuentes live streams, and I'm still not sure how I'm Schrodinger's whore. Like, that's still, like, a lot for me personally. So then, like, when it's happening now, it's like my chest, like, it's a little red. Like, it's like I don't know, it's like some kind of, like, birthmark situation. Happens if I'm hot, happens if I'm cold, happens, like, really in most circumstances. And so one of them saw that, and he was like, oh, what is that? And I'm like, that's a birthmark. And he's like, did you get that because your dad beat you?
What?
And I'm like, do you think that's how birthmarks are formed? Like, what? I don't even understand the question. But they're so, like, hard up to, like, say what they want to say that, like, they don't really need any context that's accurate or sensical.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Yeah, they're really obsessed with sex, it seems like, for a bunch of guys who tell their audience to never have sex. And I don't know, how many times a day does Nick say don't come? But yeah, they're really enjoying those insults. It's a strange dynamic. I don't know how they make sense of that in their own heads, but somehow it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild the way that these guys just obsess over this. Anytime they talk to a woman journalist, they do this kind of thing, it seems like, and seems like they've got it out for you, which is pretty funny, and at the same time, like, somewhat kind of worrisome that this is how these guys choose to interact when they get the chance. I mean, obviously it makes you completely understand why they would be incels, because if this is how you talk to any woman in your sphere, this isn't going to work real well. But it also makes you think that, wow, these guys are just a huge, dangerous problem. Now, you said that they ended up moving across the street, was it? The hotel that they ended up doing the Nick Fuentes event that night was across the street from the CPAC hotel? Yeah. So some backstory. Grayson and Sanchez were enemies with Nick Fuentes for a while, but now they're all friends again. But Ryan and Grayson were allowed inside a CPAC. Most Groypers many Groypers were kicked out, we'll say. So, Nick got kicked out on Thursday. He went in, and then Dalton got kicked out, I think, Friday. So, and then, they all came in on Saturday before Trump spoke with their blue hats, chanting whatever they chant, and they got kicked out then as well. So I don't really know. I'm a little unclear. I don't think that Nick's event was ever going to be inside the Gaylord Hotel, which is the host hotel. But he said that a hotel canceled on him. Now, he also reserved
room at the Gaylord, which was actually, if I had not get press credentials, was my plan to be allowed inside of the hotel and not be kicked out. So, like if I have a room here, you can't kick me out. It didn't work for Nick. They kicked him out anyway. So he had to find a new place to hold his event. And the Gaylord's a Marriott property, but across the street, there's another Marriott property. It's a Residence Inn. And so that's where Nick ended up having his event. But for the whole time Donald Trump spoke, so for like 2.5 hours, all of his little Groypers, he had to stand outside in the cold. It was very windy. It was very cold. Some who were old enough went inside of bars, which is what I did while I waited. But the rest of them had to like stand in a little gaggle in the middle of the street.
Poor little guys.
Yeah.
So did they get kicked out once they got recognized and someone at CPAC knew who they were, or were they doing things that forced them to get kicked out because they were being terrible, or did you see a pattern there?
Nick got kicked out because everybody knows who he is. And he's also dressing like Kanye now, so he's like extremely recognizable, Mm-hmm. And then Dalton, I'm pretty sure Dalton was like harassing people. Like some of them will be like asking questions about the Jews to like Steve Bannon and stuff. And so that gets them kicked out pretty fast. When the Groypers came in Saturday, they were all in their hats and they were like obviously there to make a scene. And the way it works is because Trump was there on Saturday, if you had actual access to the event, you had to go in through a certain door, and like you were like when I came out, then I had to go back through Secret Service security to get in, which there was no line because CPAC was very low energy and empty this year.
Aww.
But theoretically, that entrance would have been closed any other year at that point in time because they would have been at capacity. So it's not like people could even really see them.
You brought up Steve Bannon and how they feel about him. I think most people probably don't realize how they view Steve Bannon. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or explain it, because a lot of these guys think that he's essentially an Israel first. Yeah, he's far right, but the Jews control him. Is that the sense with this group?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nick will say, he's conservative Inc. He's a shill for Israel, and they don't like him at all. That's a big focus point of his rhetoric. That's why he didn't like Joe Kent. He called him a shill for Israel as well.
So why do you think CPAC was so low energy and so poorly attended this year?
Well, other journalists are saying it's because Matt Schlapp is a predator, which I think is true for sponsorship, but I don't think it's true for attendees. Like, I think it's true for like people of note, but like the general like person that wants to go to CPAC, I don't think that they care. It's really expensive. The Gaylord it was $500 a night. I was really grateful when I got press credentials because I got to cancel my reservation at that extremely expensive hotel. So way back in the day, CPAC used to be in Bethesda, Maryland. And then it was at this hotel in DC that like has a metro stop right in front of it. It's kind of isolated. It's kind of in like a Met area, like if you're a tourist. But, there's metro. You don't have to stay at that hotel. National Harbor is in Maryland, and it's like a little campus. I call it a campus. There's the Gaylord, which you've ever seen any Gaylord in this country. They're all the same. It's a giant sprawling hotel and convention center. And then there's like, a couple other hotels and some like mediocre restaurants, overpriced restaurants. I think the cheapest hotel I saw about 3 to 4 weeks out was the Hampton Inn at $330 a night.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's a lot for a Hampton Inn.
I have diamond status with Hilton, and I have like whatever the top Marriott status. So I have like status. So I usually see a cheaper price than the general public will. So keep that in mind. It might have even been more. There's no public transit whatsoever. None.
Wow.
So if you want to go in and out of DC, you have to Uber. Part of National Harbor is a harbor, so it's up on the water. And the rest of it back ends into nothing. I used to live behind it. They put up an electric fence surrounding the property. I don't know if the electric fence is still there, but like instead of being able to walk to it, I had to drive, even though it was super close. There's like a grocery store. There's like they built a casino, but you got to take a shuttle, and it's not really on campus per se. So it's extraordinarily expensive. When I went to CPAC in 2021 in Orlando, my hotel, the DoubleTree, was $65 a night.
Okay. And
that sounds. A pool, and I could use the pool.
That sounds significantly more reasonable. Wow.
Yeah. Even the like hotel across the street from the venue, the Rosen, which is like where all the Proud Boys stay. When I looked at that at CPAC Orlando, it was like $120 a night, which is much more reasonable. And if you're going to spend $100 a night at a hotel, do you want it to be the fucking Hampton Inn Or do you want it to be the Rosen Center, which is ostensibly a nicer place and $100 cheaper? So I think price probably played a role in it. It's a hostile environment. It's a hostile area. It's a hostile area for MAGA supporters now. And that's, if you're here and you're Republican, maybe you're not a MAGA supporter, and it's very MAGA heavy. And so I think the location played a lot too. I think it was a really big mistake to bring it back to DC. They should have left it in Florida. I think it would have done better there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And then, they can't stop losing. They lose the presidency. They lose, elections they think are in the bag. Their rhetoric is, it was extremely unpopular for the election. And that's demoralizing because I used to go to CPAC when I supported Ron Paul, and it was much different than it is now. Well, I would say it's much smaller, but honestly, the vendor area was probably bigger back in 2008 and 2009 because that's how few vendors there were at this one. Oh, you know what the other thing is too? The cohesion. If you go to CPAC and you want to go out afterwards, in Orlando, there's so many things to do right around. Everybody kind of goes. You can go to any of the bars. You can walk to them. Maybe take an Uber to one that's a mile away. But in National Harbor, people are I don't want to be in fucking Maryland. And they go out in D.C. because they've spent all this money to come out here and they want to go. So you can't even, there's no cohesion. It's not oh, I know I can go to that bar and everybody will be there. You don't know that.
Right.
Any bar in D.C. is your oyster now. Who knows? So yeah, it sucked.
I heard that TPUSA wasn't there. Did you see Charlie Kirk or any of were they all there or but not officially, or were they just not showing up this year? Which it seems to me this would be their hunting ground. So I was a little shocked that they weren't there.
I did not see anybody that I recognized from TPUSA. I will also say, most people were old. And that was not the case during COVID in Orlando. There were younger people there. And, a lot of that is probably financial. Oh, you know what else? CPAC usually has overflow rooms. And so if you are if someone's on, you don't really care about them, you can go in the overflow room and watch from there. And people will talk, they'll strike up conversation. And it was a hostile setup for socializing and networking if you're just a random person. So yeah, so I didn't see any Tournament USA people. And most of the young people I went to one session that was for young people, and it was full. I mean, the room was full, but it was also a really small room, and it was probably all the people under 26 at the entire event were in that room,
Wow. So yeah, poorly attended, factional differences, or certain people just weren't showing up. Sounds like it made for kind of a pretty low energy, weak event, like you said. You think they'll learn from this and do this somewhere where it's a little more friendly, like Florida next year, or are they going to try and keep making it work like this?
Will they even be in business next year?
Oh, that's always a great question.
I mean, It was so terrible. It was awful. I don't even know. I don't even know how they began to fix this. That being said, Matt Schlapp, if you're listening, please let me into CPAC Hungary. I think CPAC Hungary is going to be great.
You laid out a lot of reasons why people wouldn't show up, but I guess the other theory going around is that Trump's influence is waning. Do you think that was part of it? It was just it's inaccessible because it's too much money, or do you think Trump doesn't have the support that he used to have? Because DeSantis didn't even show up. I don't know if DeSantis came up much, or if it was really just focused on Trump, but there's not as much support. Did you get a read on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I got a read on it while I was there because I didn't really listen to any speeches at all, maybe 2 or 3, but my perception would be that the people who love Trump really love Trump and are generally willing to travel for him. And I would imagine there's a subset of people who were priced out who would otherwise have been interested in coming.
Right.
I will say the day Trump was there was by far the busiest day. I mean, it was extremely empty the other days, but the day he was there, the general seating area people were actually in it. So, I don't know, you've got to go 2.5 hours out, anyway, to find really a solid group of Trump supporters. I think the setting probably is being undercounted as something, but it's hard for me to say if MAGA is waning.
I mean, do you have anything you're going to use from it for an article, or are you trying to pitch anything based on your time there?
So I really didn't attend CPAC in the way. I mean, people kept asking questions about the speeches and the Trump and the audience. I am here for like 7 different fucking Nazis that I personally know. Like, that's why Amanda's here. I don't care. One of the undercover pieces I'm working on is related to the Nazis that are at CPAC. And so that's like what I was trying to figure out where to pitch, like something about, I don't think it's really got enough coverage that Shabbat and the Groyper army rally happened at the same hotel at overlapping times, basically. And so I was trying to figure out where to pitch that, but I might just throw it on Substack because nobody will respond to my requests for comment.
Maybe like Jerusalem Post or one of those.
I pitched the Ford. I haven't heard back, but I mean, it's kind of like if you don't get back to me in like a day or two, it's kind of like timely or not. So right. I can't like sit on it forever.
Can you explain the CPAC, Shabbat, Nick Fuentes? What exactly was going on there?
So CPAC is put on by an organization called the American Conservative Union, ACU. Right. It's Matt Schlapp's organization. So every year, ACU and the Young Jewish Conservatives co-host or co-sponsor, I guess, Shabbat. And it's usually inside the host hotel, but this year, probably because it's so fucking expensive, it was across the street at the Residence Inn. So it ended at 7 p.m. Now, Fuentes' Groyper event, I guess he called around, found a place that would host it, and it was there. Now, Hannah Gaze at the Southern Poverty Law Center broke the story. I checked the time at 7:18 that it was going to be at the Residence Inn. So it's 18 minutes after Shabbat is over. So I was with another journalist, and we went to the Residence Inn. Probably 2 minutes later, we were there. And the first thing I see is the Shabbat signage everywhere. And there's people carrying things out of the room, they're unloading stuff. And then Groyper start filing in 10 minutes later. So they're these are families, they've got children with them who are scared because they're hearing the adults say stuff like white nationalists and Groyper and some of these assholes tried to intimidate me into leaving. They were wearing Kevlar and shit and had their faces covered up. Dalton, your fluffy ass hair, everybody knows it's you. Come on, Dalton. You do a live stream. And he's like, you have to get out of here. And I'm like, do you work here for the hotel? He's like, no. He's like, you don't be stupid. And then another one comes up to me also in Kevlar and just stands next to me. And I'm like, okay. They tried to intimidate me out, but the whole point, and they had the wands, the metal detecting wands. The whole point is to be intimidating. And it's just sure, Shabbat was technically over. People are still unloading. And if an event starts at 8 and an event ends at 7 in a hotel in an area where everybody is staying in the area for an event, you're going to have some crossover. You're going to have some, bleeding together of times. And they did. And, the Marriott will not respond to me. Corporate Residence Inn will not respond to me. The Convention Association will not respond to me. Nobody will respond to me. It's really easy to just be we also think Nazis are bad. Oh, ACU and Matt Schlapp won't respond to me. All we have to do is be Nazis are bad, and next year we will not host this event because we also think that Nazis are bad. But nobody wants to do that.
They can't seem to bring themselves to send that email. It's weird. Well, speaking of low-energy events that didn't really come off particularly well and poorly attended, you also attended the Rage Against the War Machine rally recently, which seems like it was quite a miserable failure. What stuck out to you most as the most epic part of that failure?
Oh, I liked when Max Blumenthal's wife, Anya, got on stage and complained that twice convicted pedophile Scott Ritter wasn't allowed to speak on stage with her.
I'm also disappointed that there are some people who couldn't share the stage with me today. Is Scott Ritter in the audience? I want to give it up to Scott Ritter. He unfortunately couldn't speak today, but I just want to point out that more than anybody on this stage, Scott is actually someone who knows what it feels like to risk and lose everything, and he did it in order to stand up to the greatest humanitarian catastrophe so far this century, the Iraq War. So thank you, Scott.
That was the highlight of the entire event for me. Because you could simply not do that. You could not specify you're upset that twice convicted pedophile was not allowed to speak with you. And then she pointed at him I believe in the audience and said, is Scott Ritter here? I'm sorry, Scott. Come on.
They're probably justifying it because it was undercover cops that he was talking to on both occasions. So, not really a pedophile in that same sense. But
2 other occasions where it happened twice in 1 year in the same fucking city where it dead to rights, but they still had to drop it. Do you know what his lawyer said? They said he was so sad and so depressed over the Iraq war, he had to become a pedophile.
Wow. God.
And I noticed that certain of the, shall we say, red-brown types were hanging around there. I saw some footage of Matt Heimbach out there with his new thing. What's he calling that? Patriotic Socialists that he's got going?
Oh, who even knows?
Huh.
He said that Goad Gadsby, if you're familiar with him on Twitter, he told him that he was the fascist now.
Ooh,
Goad is the fascist.
Goad is the fascist.
So,
well, I
They
followed.
love that, don't they?
yes, the anti-fascist activist is now the fascist.
Yeah, I've been following Goad for a while, and I just don't get that out of him for some reason. I'm not sure why, but he just doesn't really come off like a fascist. Yeah, it's a wrong kind of mustache. So I noticed also that Tulsi Gabbard was at both of these events. She's definitely kind of making the rounds lately. Do you think she's going to end up being Trump's vice presidential choice? Bipartisanship and all that? Or where do you see her future?
That'd be so fucking funny. Well, I know that after she did not secure the 2020 presidential nomination, Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard, noted supporter of peace, left the Hawaii National Guard and moved into the U.S. Army Reserves, presumably so that she could have a more stable military career. So I don't know if that is her goal, or maybe she was just like, the National Guard is not peaceful enough, but the U.S. Army is more peaceful. Maybe that was why she made the switch. I don't really know. But my assumption would be, or at the time, was that she wanted to be more on the military side and maybe use that to kind of move into infantry, which she seems to be doing. So who knows?
Yeah, guest host of Tucker Carlson. Maybe she can get that slot before him. Sean Hannity, he's not MAGA enough. So let's pop in Tulsi Gabbard there.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Sean Hannity's getting along in years, and his audience is starting to age out of all of this. And
he keeps having Lindsey Graham on, who is a pro-Ukraine rhino and all that. So we can't stand for that sort of traitorous behavior.
Definitely. So one of the other featured speakers at this event was a guy that you've had some conversations with recently by the name of Jackson Hinkle. He's known for his promotion of something that he made up called MAGA communism and his appearance on the Tucker Carlson show.
It seems like a lot of the practices and the actions that the Biden administration is employing in the United States right now that were reflected in that speech are very closely aligned with what the dictator Zelensky is doing in Ukraine. Joe Biden is plunging us into a fascist state, and he is taking cues from what Zelensky is doing in Ukraine to manufacture this dystopian state and this dystopian reality in America. And there's no real surprise for me there, because at the end of the day, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, and Joe Biden are controlled by the same exact people. They're controlled by individuals like George Soros and controlled by people like Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum, and they're going to do whatever they want.
And before this, he ran for city council in San Clemente, California, as a Bernie Sanders supporter. And before that, he was a young surf grommet who dreamed of attending art school someday. I noticed that, Jackson Hinkle has that in common with a certain short Austrian. They both tried to get into art school, and neither one of them managed to pull it off. And now they're both sort of becoming demagogues. It seems like a career path. So maybe we should go and petition some of these art schools to relax their standards a little bit, let these guys in, so maybe they don't end up wanting to go and do this kind of stuff later on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jackson would argue that actually Ukraine is Hitler. So,
Ooh, right.
There's a flaw in your logic right there. I'm sorry to tell you.
Owned.
Didn't he praise Stalin the other day?
He did.
So
He did. He's a huge Stalin fan.
Which, of course, Putin has done, and we know he loves Putin. How many shirtless pictures of Putin do you think Jackson has in his bedroom? I mean, just rough estimate.
Like a wallpaper, just one wall dedicated.
So Jackson Hinkle, he's a special case. This guy is absolutely something.
Yeah, well, his recent tweet here is, if you stand with Ukraine, you are a traitor to America. Also Jackson Hinkle. We stand with Putin, Xi, Kim Jong-un, Lukashenko, the president of Belarus, Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, and, Najib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, who's taken a rather hard right turn. It is interesting that Bukele retweeted old Jackson Hinkle, although he was really retweeting anyone who had something nice to say about him. But Jackson Hinkle is he is a failed progressive local politician, and he has since gone further and further left until he's far right. It is hard to find a more vehement supporter of Putin's invasion, full-scale invasion of Ukraine than Jackson Hinkle,
Indeed.
Isn't it?
He's 23 or he's 24, I'm not sure which. He was a senior at San Clemente High School in 2018. He was a political activist, and he wrote a lot of environmental stuff. His drive for the truth, as the Triton Times, which I think is their school paper at the time, said, "My drive for the truth is fueled by my deep discontent with the vast amounts of injustice and intolerance present within our society. While writing for the Triton Times, I intend to provide factual information and new thoughts to the currently stigmatized scenes of local, national, and international politics." Okay, then. And here he is in a tweet later offering to box Adam Kinzinger, sanctioned boxing match. This is wonderful. Loser has to deport to Ukraine. He must deport himself to Ukraine and never return.
Well, it's really odd. I'm not sure he's going to go to Ukraine anytime soon.
No.
Yeah, and to be clear, he is not on a Ukrainian kill list. He's on a Ukrainian list of pro-Putin propagandists who are encouraging and cheerleading for Putin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and denying war crimes and calling the Ukrainians Nazis, and their Jewish president in Ukraine is, in their telling, also a Nazi. So these are not kill lists. You are a embarrassing enough propagandist, shameless enough propagandist that you end up on a list in Ukraine so people know not to do business with you or to take you seriously as a person because you're a liar for money.
Mm-hmm. I think it's absolutely fair that they put him on a list like that because, well, you look at the guy and he is. And
he's proud of it. He's not hiding it.
Right. So, own your work, Jackson. You definitely deserve the credit for this one, and you earned it. Well, at least he's lucky his current girlfriend's not going to get upset about that because he is apparently dating, we kid you not, Miss Russia 2022, a woman by the name of Anna Linikova. We're quite happy for him about this because his last girlfriend dumped him for Jonah Hill, and that's got to hurt. Old Anna seems to be quite a catch, even if her billiard skills could use some work. What do you think she sees in him besides incredibly expensive vacations? And why does he block everybody on Twitter who asks him about it?
Why does she also block people who ask about it?
Oh.
They both do. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just, it's very interesting. I will say after my good buddy Jackson blocked me, he then went to his Telegram like a week later and was like, if you're an unemployed Substack writer or something, which was funny because he just described both of our jobs. Okay.
Hey, he has a Rumble channel. Okay. So.
Right. It's totally different. And he's like, if you're an unemployed Substack writer and you were harassing me and my loved ones, blah, 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 blah. And all I took from that, I was like, buddy, I only reached out to you and her. So if your loved ones, so now you're in love with her. That's your girlfriend. You love her.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm taking this as confirmation that she's your girlfriend. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, she's a looker, man. Be proud of that. What's the problem here? Why are you upset that someone would want to ask you about that?
It's so weird that Jackson Hinkle loves to brag about everything on Twitter.com. And yet for some reason, the hottest woman that's ever talked to him in his life doesn't merit any posts. Weird. Mm-hmm. Real weird.
Mm-hmm. Can't figure out what's in it for her, but I mean, hey, you never know. It's a vacation in the United States and a little bit of publicity, some good shots for the Instagram.
Do you want to run us down a little bit about that story where you did out that he is dating Miss Russia? And was it a lot of effort to corroborate that and put it together, or did you just sort of happen upon it? I know he called you a stalker over it. So are you just an expert stalker, or What did that look
He
like?
called me a deranged stalker. So please get it right. And that's what I was
Deranged
telling people at CPAC. I'm like, I'm a deranged stalker. They're like, why are you here? I'm like, deranged stalking. Come on. So we rewind and go to the day before the Rage Against the War Machine rally, which is all of 2.5 weeks ago. I knew that Jackson Hinkle was a Twitter character. I did not know anything about him. Literally nothing. And then at that rally, I don't think I even really heard him talk. But because I was there, somebody reached out to me and was like, hey, you should know I've got these screenshots that show that basically most of the ones that I put in my Substack article that show like Jackson Hinkle connected to Ms. Russian. There were a variety of clues. Like they're both in Miami at the same time. He had like said on Discord, there were jokes about him like having sex with her on Discord from some of his followers that he was responding to. And then he had tweeted about her coming to his apartment, but obviously no one took it seriously. It was like in a reply to a nobody. And it's Jackson Hinkle, like whatever.
He makes things up.
Yeah, he makes things up. He's like, lunatic. But everything actually did end up lining up and her Instagram stories matched up. And so the person sent it to me. And then I kind of looked through it and there was even more stuff than what they had sent me. Like she had, her manicure. You could see he had a photo of a girl's hand in one of his, and it was the exact manicure that she had when she was in Miami at the exact same time. And then my friend, who was a researcher, fire researcher, he I was just trying to write about the rally. So I was like, can you help me? Can you see where they were? And he did. He looked it up. He was able to figure out what hotel they were at, and that was something that Jackson had tweeted. He'd actually tweeted what hotel, again, in a reply. Like the price that I put on my Substack, $2,000 a night, was being extremely generous. Like I would say it's probably likely they probably paid more like $3,500 to $4,000 a night. But I wanted to get the article out and I didn't want to keep trying to figure out the balcony room because they had a balcony,
right.
And that's going to more than $2,000. But whatever, I was like $2,000 is close enough.
$2,000 is expensive
whatever.
enough for it to qualify as an expensive hotel. That is just, yep, good, go.
Yeah, and and that's for the cheapest room, which they definitely did not have. So their trip was at least $14,000 for just the hotel alone, which I'm sure he's got a lot of super chats.
Sure,
I'm sure that's exactly how that was paid for. And so I had asked him for a comment. I want to know how they met. Can you confirm? And how did you two meet? And then he just ignored it. And then I asked her, can you confirm how did you meet? And then I published the article and it got some traction. And then he blocked me. And then she blocked me. And then he tried to dox my researcher, who is literally, I put his name in the article and linked to his Twitter, and his Twitter is his real name and photo. And he still did it wrong because Jackson Hinkle is not very smart.
No.
He's like an actual idiot. So yeah, that's how that came to pass.
Well, there is a rather interesting history of people who push Kremlin talking points, and they just end up with these Russian or Slavic, or in George Papadopoulos's case, Italian wives who don't have Italian accents. So it does kind of raise some questions about, how did they meet? That's a great question. It's weird that he won't answer it, and it's weird that he took so long to call you a stalker. And did he have to get confirmation that he could say anything, or did somebody have to kind of direct his comments? It's all very odd. So, yeah, the fact that he's trying to hide this, it speaks to something weird going on. So anyway, nice work.
Indeed, good work.
Thank you.
So, speaking of extremists, I've noticed that we've seen a disturbing trend lately on Twitter and certain podcasts lately of replatforming and normalizing guys like Richard Spencer and Chuck Johnson, who don't seem to have renounced any of their previous views besides their support for Donald Trump. Why do you think this is happening? And do you think these guys will be able to successfully pull off the rebrand without addressing their previous statements?
I don't understand why it's happening. I don't understand why it's happening. I truly don't understand what people are thinking. Don't trust Chuck Johnson. Don't trust Richard Spencer. Don't platform them. Come on, what are you doing? Don't share their tweets. Don't share their stuff. Stop doing this. First of all, be highly suspicious of people when they say that they have reformed. what needs to happen, de-radicalization is a long-term process. If you are on March 5th, you're like, I'm getting a divorce, okay? And then on March 12th, you're proposing to a new woman, something's up. It's not right, okay? Either you're going crazy, you're throwing yourself into something new, or you were cheating the whole time and this is a plan. It's the same thing. When people say I'm reformed, they have to fuck off. They have to fuck off for a year or two. They have to figure out what's going on inside. They have to come to terms with what they did. It's going to take a long time. And frankly, it probably takes more time for women than it does for men, because women who become Nazis as adults are way more fucked up than the men who become Nazis as adults. And then they can maybe come back and maybe have, there's behind the scenes work you can do in DRAD. You don't have to be out on the fucking street. A lot of people have these personalities where they're trading one megaphone for another. And we should not allow that to happen. You are not the spokesperson for the left or the left's thought process if you used to be a Nazi. Period. Full stop.
Right.
Well, I saw Chuck Johnson. It was a month or two ago. He's in a Twitter space with everybody in the right wing. And he's in there with Steve King. And it was around the time that they were having the speaker vote, and they weren't sure if McCarthy was going to get it or not. But Chuck was in there defending Steve King, saying, "Oh, the New York Times defamed him, and they just attacked him because they don't like him because he defends the unborn and all these things." And then the next day or later that day, he's in a space with quote unquote leftists, and I don't know how people make sense of it. I mean, he's not any different. He's defending Steve King, the white nationalist who got kicked out of Congress.
And to the best of my knowledge, neither of these guys have ever renounced anything besides their support for Trump. I haven't heard Richard Spencer make a single comment about, hey, maybe I was wrong to say some of the things I've said about Jews and blacks and everything else. I haven't heard Chuck Johnson really apologize for any of this stuff. But for some reason, all of a sudden it's okay to put them on your podcast and talk about them having really great ideas and being really surprised at how wonderful their ideas are. And it's kind of like, it's how they get you,
Yeah.
They voted for Biden, so let's cheerlead for them. Yeah. And maybe they did. I don't know that they did, but it doesn't really matter, does it?
I believe that Spencer voted for Biden. I do believe that, but I believe that it's because the future that he wants, he finds it possible to achieve that under Biden. I mean, and I'm sure this is part of it, like this acceptance by the left. And, is it easier? Like, I think is like, MAGA people are so fucking delusional. They're so delusional. I would be frustrated if this is when I was undercover, like a lot of the guys I knew, we found it very frustrating. That was something we could actually bond over. It's so frustrating how these people are so delusional. And who do you think you can shepherd into something, left-wing rubes or these people who just don't live in reality at all? Who's easier?
I always thought the reason Spencer voted for Biden is because Trump turned out to be not racist enough. I mean, didn't build the wall, didn't crack down on immigration, didn't end up, coming down on the Jews like Spencer thought he was going to. All of a sudden, you're mad at this guy because he broke every promise that you thought he made. So, of course, you'd want to punish him for that.
Yeah, and he didn't like Trump at first. He wasn't a fan of Trump at all. And then he came in and was rapid fire executive orders. I mean, it was very close to the end of the the voting cycle, like whatever. Like it was closer to the election before Spencer was like, "Oh, I'm on board with this guy," because at first he was not.
Yeah, I think he's kind of alluded to when he's talking about Jack Posobiec about how they talked him into, we're going to do all these things for you. According to Spencer, he was telling him, I'm going to be your guy and we're going to give you all this support from the inside. And so I think it was, like you said, he came on pretty late, but I guess they sold him on that idea of Trump, the alt-right supporter, and all of those guys were like Posobiec and Cernovich were all pretending to be Nazis for a little bit, and it's different degrees of pretending, but yeah, they kind of just sold Spencer out, and when he became a liability, they got rid of him. So you do have to wonder how much of it supporting Biden was just because he hates Trump and he hates all those people who betrayed him.
Yeah, the alt-light, he's gone off on that tangent many times. I mean, even, Cernovic was talking at one point about, hey, you should be giving money to the NPI, you should be giving money to Spencer, and then all of a sudden they throw him under the bus. So I could definitely see why he would be upset about that. But yeah, just because the guy voted for Biden, he's not your friend. He isn't.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I'm with you. I don't, like you said, you need a detox, you need a time away. These guys are terminally online and haven't stopped being that. So yeah, the left is, I guess, kind of gullible and wants to think everybody can be saved, but not so much.
It would be nice if they would even make the slightest sort of effort towards pretending that they were saved rather than coming up with some even more convoluted conspiracy about Israel to try and justify what's going on. It's a little weird, some of the stuff that comes out of that guy now. And when a guy like Chuck Johnson tweets out something like, what should we do about Israel? It comes off a little JQ'd out of that guy's mouths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one last question that I have to ask because we got Nick Fuentes apparently made a comment about you specifically, but did not refer to you by name. So what's it going to take for him to acknowledge your existence? A few more articles? You're going to have to be a bit of a more dedicated deranged stalker. I don't know if you wanted to share what he called you, or just you're coming for him, right?
So I was with Chris Mathias. We were on the street by the Groypers.
Okay.
And because we stood outside with them for 25 minutes before we were like, this is too cold. Trump was still talking, and we knew, dozens of people watching this. Someone will tell us when this speech is up. We're going to go outside to the bar where they can't go. But we stood outside with them for 20 minutes. They were walking around. What are they going to do? And they started recording us, even though we're not recording them, first of all. And second of all, we're public facing. We have nothing to hide. What are you recording?
Yeah.
What are you doing here, guys? And then Nick posted the video of us standing on the corner on Telegram, and it was this is Christmas. Journo's looking for us. We weren't looking for them. We were looking at them. Okay. And he's like, this is Chris Mathias and IDK, some ugly chick. Be on the lookout, which is great. So that went in my Twitter bio immediately, right up with deranged stalker.
You're just racking up the names. Gonna have to add some
Grayson
characters.
calls me the MAGA mattress.
Ooh.
I did hear that. Yeah, I didn't. Oof.
Yeah.
Oh, Grayson.
Yeah.
Oh, Grayson.
When he I thought I had a nickname for me, I was like, I hope it's funny, but it wasn't.
They've really tried to crush your spirit, and I am really disappointed. Your spirit does not seem crushed at all.
No.
Yeah. I don't think they expected my reaction when they approached me in person. And I learned later that perhaps many journalists, people, not just but people, journalists are more likely to have to interact with these people, would not have handled it the way that I did, because I did not walk away. I stood my ground.
Yeah, they're not used to that, it seems like, and they get increasingly flustered whenever anybody sort of, just says, no, sorry, we're not playing it that way. We're going to talk. We're going to have that conversation. See how you handle it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Amanda. We really appreciate you coming on with us again. It was great having you. We hope that everything goes well and that you manage to keep making all kinds of awesome friends, and that, you keep coming back and telling us these stories. These are wonderful. Anything you've got going you want to shout out real quick before we take off? No?
No.
Well, I would say stay safe, but it seems like you know how to take care of yourself. So keep doing what you're doing.
And remember, NoTurtleSoup17 at twitter.com. She's also got a Substack. You should go subscribe to that because it's awesome. Again, thanks for coming out, and we will talk to you again soon.
Okay, thanks for having me.
No problem. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Did Nothing Wrong podcast. If you want to hear more, you can go to didnothingwrongpod.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at James, the word 4, and the letter M, all one word, and Grizza BJJ, Grza BJJ, as well as DNW Pod. Thanks again for tuning in, and remember, everyone mentioned did nothing wrong.